What would you do if your boss walked into your office on a random morning and demanded that you train a newly hired junior employee to perform every single aspect of your job, knowing full well that management was preparing to fire you as soon as the knowledge transfer was complete? Like, really sit down and think about that scenario for a moment. You have dedicated 16 years of your life to building an entire operational department from the ground up. You know every server configuration, every proprietary database query, every critical client account, and every custom algorithm that keeps the company profitable. And management expects you to hand over the keys to your life work with a pleasant smile. That is not a hypothetical story or a corporate thought experiment. That actually happened to me. And honestly, the way I handled the situation is probably the most satisfying demonstration of contractual leverage and workplace revenge you will hear all year. My name is Simon Gallagher. I am 54 years old, a proud veteran of the United States Navy, and this is the story of how my 16-year civilian career at Horizon Logistics turned into a $2 million triumph. Picture the exact setting. It is 8:47 in the morning on a chilly Thursday in mid-November. I walk into the Central Executive Conference Room at Horizon Logistics, a prominent supply chain consulting firm located in Seattle, Washington. I have been working in this building ever since I completed 8 years of active naval service 16 years ago. Sitting at the long mahogany table is my direct supervisor, Bradley Fletcher, sitting alongside a young man I have never seen before. The newcomer looks to be in his late 20s, dressed in a tailored Navy suit with a leather portfolio resting neatly on the table. He has that bright, overly enthusiastic facial expression that signals a fresh business school graduate who has never faced a real operational crisis in his life. Bradley has an uncomfortable, evasive look on his face. He clears his throat nervously and says, "Simon, thanks for coming in so quickly. This is Oliver Torres. He is going to be joining our senior operations team, and I would like you to spend the next 3 weeks getting him completely up to speed on your tracking systems and operational workflows." I stood still for a moment, my coffee mug held in hand, processing the full implication of his statement, up to speed on my systems. Not joining as an assistant under my supervision, but taking over my exact role. I set my coffee mug down on the glass table. "What exactly does up to speed mean, Bradley?" I asked calmly. Oliver extended his hand with a broad smile. "Mr. Gallagher, it is an honor to meet you. Bradley told me you are the backbone of this company, and I am excited to learn everything you have built." I shook his hand politely, maintaining full military composure. "Thank you, Oliver," I said quietly. Then I turned my eyes back to Bradley and waited in silence. Bradley shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Oliver, why don't you head over to the break room for a few minutes, while Simon and I handle some administrative details?" As soon as the young man stepped out into the hallway, Bradley closed the heavy conference room door. Right then, I knew with absolute certainty that after 16 years, 7 months and 11 days of continuous service, Horizon Logistics was getting ready to throw me away. Let me step back and provide crucial context, because understanding the backstory is essential to understanding why management was walking straight into a legal trap of their own making. I joined Horizon Logistics in March 16 years ago, shortly after leaving active duty in the Navy as a logistics specialist. During my 8 years of military service, I managed supply chains under grueling, high-pressure conditions across naval operations. In the military, you learn very quickly that operational success depends on absolute data accuracy, structured procedures, and relentless risk management. When I accepted the job at Horizon Logistics, the company was modest, employing approximately 180 people, managing 29 active client accounts, and generating roughly $14 million in annual operational revenue. My initial responsibility was simple: supervise daily freight distribution, streamline regional routes, and ensure zero shipment delays. Within my first 18 months, I recognized that company operational systems were a complete disaster. Management was relying on fragmented spreadsheets, manual entry logs, and chaotic email strings. Drawing upon my military discipline, I decided to solve the problem permanently. I spent hundreds of hours during my off hours teaching myself modern database architecture, Python programming, and cloud server management. Night after night, sitting in my home garage with a laptop and black coffee, I built a fully automated supply chain management platform from scratch. I named the system Freight Tracker. Before Freight Tracker, our firm operational efficiency hovered around 73%. Within 2 years of implementing my custom software, operational efficiency jumped to 96%. We transformed from a struggling regional logistics firm into an industry leader known for unshakable reliability. Over the following decade and a half, Freight Tracker became the core engine of the entire enterprise. By this year, I was personally managing 82 major corporate supply chains through the platform, generating over $115 million in annual operational revenue for Horizon Logistics. I had created every database table, written every line of custom predictive code, developed every client onboarding protocol, and trained every operations specialist who entered our office. Despite generating tremendous financial value for Horizon Logistics, drawing a respectable salary of $165,000 a year, there was one fundamental fact that corporate management completely overlooked. And this is where my naval background in contingency planning paid off beyond anything I could have anticipated. When I originally developed Freight Tracker during my off-duty hours, I deployed the entire system on my private Amazon Web Services cloud infrastructure account. I personally paid for all cloud server hosting fees, domain registrations, and specialized software development tools out of my own pocket using my personal credit card for the first 4 years of operation before the accounting department ever processed a routine reimbursement for server hosting utilities. More importantly, when I executed my updated employment agreement 15 years ago, I insisted on inserting a specific intellectual property reservation clause. Section 9, Paragraph C of my signed employment contract explicitly stipulated that any proprietary software, algorithms, data structures, or operational methodologies independently created by the employee using personal equipment or resources outside of mandated working hours would remain the exclusive intellectual property of the employee unless formally purchased or licensed by Horizon Logistics through a separate, written legal contract. Throughout my 16 years with the firm, executive management took Freight Tracker entirely for granted. They treated the system as an inherent corporate asset without ever paying a single dollar to acquire the intellectual property rights or executing a formal licensing agreement. They were operating their entire business model on my proprietary software, my custom dispatch algorithms, and my cloud architecture without possessing legal ownership of the core technology. And I had preserved immaculate, military-grade records documenting every stage of development. I maintained every cloud hosting bill bearing my personal name, every time-stamped code commit from my personal laptop, every home internet service record, and every archived email exchange where I explicitly noted that Freight Tracker was being built independently on my own time. My late father, a career master sergeant in the United States Army, had instilled in me a golden rule that guided my entire adult life. Document every contract, save every receipt, and protect your independent work because corporate promises dissolve the moment executive priorities change. That advice was about to become my ultimate legal weapon. Back inside the quiet conference room, Bradley Fletcher sat rubbing his forehead, looking visibly strained. "Simon, I am going to be completely frank with you," he began, resting his elbows on the table. Over the summer, a private equity firm named Summit Capital Group completed their acquisition of Horizon Logistics. Their corporate restructuring committee and our newly appointed chief financial officer, Martin Lewis, are enforcing aggressive cost reduction mandates across all operational divisions. They are eliminating high-salaried senior positions to maximize short-term cash margins before the official integration. "You are firing me," I stated plainly, keeping my voice steady and neutral. Bradley winced slightly, adjusting his necktie. "We are restructuring your position, Simon. The company is offering you a standard 4-month severance package, provided you spend the next 3 weeks completing a thorough knowledge transfer and training Oliver Torres to operate Freight Tracker and manage your 82 corporate accounts." I sat in silence for several long seconds, allowing his words to hang in the air. My initial emotional reaction was deep resentment. 16 years of unyielding dedication, late-night system upgrades, and building their primary revenue stream, tossed aside so private equity investors could pad their balance sheet. I thought about my wife Brenda, our family mortgage, and our daughter Chloe, who was completing her final year of university. But then my mind returned to Section 9, Paragraph C, and federal copyright law. I looked Bradley directly in the eye. I will require the full severance proposal in formal written documentation, including the precise timeline and terms. Furthermore, I will not be agreeing to any knowledge transfer or technical training sessions until I have thoroughly consulted with my legal counsel. Bradley frowned, clearly surprised by my calm demeanor. Your legal counsel? Simon, this is standard corporate procedure. We simply need you to walk Oliver through the daily operational procedures. I stood up slowly from the table. As a matter of professional protocol, I need my attorney to review all contract documents before I touch a single database table or conduct a single training session. I walked out of the conference room, returned to my office desk, and immediately logged into my secure personal cloud archive. I accessed my encrypted folder containing 16 years of pristine documentation. Then I dialed my attorney, Diana Reed. Diana was a highly experienced attorney specializing in employment law, corporate dispute resolution, and federal intellectual property rights. When she answered, I outlined the entire situation, detailing Bradley's demand for training and citing Section 9, Paragraph C of my employment contract. Diana listened attentively without interrupting. Once I described the cloud hosting history and my personal financial records, her tone sharpened with professional intensity. Simon, if your documentation proves you developed FreightTracker independently using personal resources, Horizon Logistics is facing an absolute catastrophe. Under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, you possess exclusive statutory copyright ownership of that software. The work-made-for-hire doctrine does not apply when an employment contract contains an express reservation of rights. Do not sign any severance papers. Do not transfer administrative login credentials, and do not provide a single minute of technical training on FreightTracker until I review your complete file. I spent the remainder of that Thursday afternoon organizing my digital paper trail into a comprehensive legal evidence dossier. I compiled cloud hosting invoices, home server access logs, initial repository commit timestamps, and archived internal emails spanning 16 years. By 5 o'clock that evening, I transmitted a 312-page encrypted evidence file directly to Diana Reed's law firm downtown. I made sure every single invoice was cross-referenced with bank transaction numbers, proving beyond any shadow of doubt that I had personally funded the platform from its inception. Later that night, Diana called me back. Simon, your evidence package is absolute ironclad, she stated with complete conviction. You possess undisputed sole copyright ownership of FreightTracker under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106. For 16 years, Horizon Logistics has been utilizing your proprietary intellectual property without a formal license. Furthermore, their sudden decision to eliminate senior operational positions without providing 60 days advance written notification for a mass employment restructuring potentially violates Title 29 of the United States Code, Section 2101, commonly known as the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. They have placed the entire firm in severe legal jeopardy, exposing themselves to dual federal claims that could cripple their business model. She advised me to stay calm and follow her exact tactical instructions. On Friday morning at 8:30, I arrived at Horizon Logistics. Oliver Torres was already waiting near my office desk with his notebook open, looking eager to begin. Good morning, Mr. Gallagher. Are we ready to dive into the core database architecture today? He asked, with genuine enthusiasm. Oliver, please give me a little time. I have an administrative matter to clear up with Bradley first, I replied politely. I walked straight into Bradley Fletcher's office. He was sitting behind his computer monitor, reviewing corporate spreadsheets. Simon, excellent. Let's get the FreightTracker training program underway immediately, he said, motioning toward a leather chair. Bradley, I am here to inform you officially that I will not be conducting any training sessions on Freight Tracker, nor will I be transferring software administrative credentials, I stated calmly. Bradley stared at me in complete disbelief. What on earth are you talking about, Simon? That system is the absolute lifeblood of our company operations. Freight Tracker is my exclusive intellectual property under Section 9, Paragraph C of my employment contract and Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, I explained clearly. It was developed independently, using my personal time and personal resources. Horizon Logistics has utilized my proprietary software for 16 years without ever executing a formal licensing agreement. If the company wishes to continue using Freight Tracker or obtain ownership rights, management must negotiate a formal licensing agreement with my legal counsel. Bradley's face drained of color, turning from pale white to deep red with sudden panic. Are you serious right now, Simon? You built that platform while working as an employee here. I built it on my own personal time, using my own private cloud infrastructure, and I possess 16 years of unbroken billing records and code commits proving independent creation, I replied evenly. I am willing to negotiate in good faith, but until a licensing contract is finalized, no technical training will take place. Furthermore, I must remind you that the entire Freight Tracker database currently resides on my personal cloud server account. Bradley slammed his palm on the desk and stood up abruptly. Do not touch that database. You cannot hold this entire firm hostage. I am not holding anyone hostage, Bradley, I replied smoothly. I am simply exercising my legal statutory rights under federal copyright law. My attorney will be delivering a formal legal proposal to corporate counsel by this afternoon. By 11 o'clock that morning, my phone buzzed with an urgent email notification from Bradley demanding my attendance at an emergency executive meeting at 2 o'clock with Chief Financial Officer Martin Lewis and their outside corporate legal counsel, Fiona Jenkins. I immediately forwarded the meeting details to Diana Reed, who confirmed she would attend in person to represent my legal position. At 2 o'clock sharp, we assembled in the executive boardroom. Martin Lewis, a stern man in his mid-50s wearing wire-rimmed glasses and a dark suit, sat alongside Fiona Jenkins, a seasoned corporate litigation attorney known for her sharp demeanor. Bradley Fletcher sat nervously at the far end of the boardroom table. Fiona opened the discussion with an assertive tone. Mr. Gallagher, Ms. Reed, we have reviewed Section 9, Paragraph C of the employment contract. Horizon Logistics maintains that Freight Tracker was developed within the routine scope of employment, and therefore constitutes exclusive company property. Diana Reed smiled calmly, placing a bound legal document on the table. With all due respect, Ms. Jenkins, federal copyright law under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, is unambiguous. My client retains exclusive copyright ownership due to the explicit contractual reservation in Section 9, Paragraph C, backed by 16 years of personal financial documentation. If Horizon Logistics attempts to seize, alter, or unauthorizedly access Freight Tracker, we will immediately file an emergency federal court motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction for copyright infringement, bringing your client operations to an immediate halt. Additionally, your corporate decision to conduct mass personnel terminations without mandatory advance written notice raises severe statutory liability under Title 29 of the United States Code, Section 2101, the Warren Act. A heavy silence settled over the executive boardroom. Martin Lewis stared at Diana, his mind rapidly computing the catastrophic financial exposure facing Horizon Logistics. Freight Tracker managed 82 major corporate supply chains representing over $115 million in annual operational revenue. If a federal judge granted an emergency temporary restraining order blocking company access to Freight Tracker, Horizon Logistics would experience complete operational paralysis within 48 hours, resulting in immediate breach of contract with every client and the total destruction of their pending buyout deal with Summit Capital Group. Fiona Jenkins leaned toward Martin Lewis, speaking in low, urgent whispers. She explained that litigating against an explicit contract reservation backed by 16 years of personal cloud hosting payments would be an uphill battle that Horizon Logistics was virtually guaranteed to lose in federal court. Furthermore, an injunction would trigger immediate default provisions in their commercial banking covenants and void their acquisition indemnities. Martin adjusted his glasses nervously, clearing his throat. Ms. Reed, Mr. Gallagher, what specific terms are you requesting to resolve this matter without litigation? Diana slid our formal legal proposal across the polished table. We require a total payment of $2,100,000 for the complete assignment and buyout of all Freight Tracker intellectual property rights, source code, and historical usage fees. In addition, my client requires a 4-month independent consulting agreement at $20,000 per month to oversee the technical knowledge transfer to your designated personnel, along with the full 4-month severance package originally offered, amounting to $47,300. The grand total settlement package is $2,227,300. Martin Lewis gasped, slamming his hand onto the boardroom table. $2 million is completely outrageous. That is blatant corporate extortion. It is fair market value for a proprietary system that generates over $100 million in annual revenue for your enterprise. Diana responded without flinching. Without Freight Tracker, your operations collapse by Monday morning. You can either purchase the system legitimately or explain to Summit Capital Group why your core technical infrastructure was shut down by a federal court injunction. Fiona Jenkins placed a calming hand on Martin's arm, advising executive leadership to request a recess. Corporate counsel requested until Monday morning to review our evidence documentation, evaluate their legal risk, and confer with Summit Capital Group stakeholders. The weekend was quiet but tense at my home in Seattle. I spent long hours talking with my wife Brenda, discussing our future and reviewing our financial strategy. Brenda held my hand and reminded me that standing up to corporate bullying required courage, but having the law on our side made all the difference. My father's military principles echoed continuously in my mind. When you hold the tactical advantage, you never surrender your position out of fear or intimidation. You stand firm, present your evidence, and force the opposing force to reckon with the consequences of their choices. We reviewed our family savings and agreed that maintaining our principles was worth every bit of effort. We knew that entering a legal battle required total conviction and zero wavering, knowing that our cause was rooted in justice and hard-won contractual rights. On Monday morning at 9 o'clock, Fiona Jenkins transmitted a revised corporate offer to Diana Reed. Horizon Logistics proposed a counteroffer of $1,500,000 for the intellectual property purchase, combined with a 2-month consulting agreement. They were attempting to test our resolve. Hoping we would panic and settle for less, Deanna immediately called me to discuss the response. She recommended holding firm. I instructed her to send an unyielding counterproposal. We would accept a total intellectual property buyout of $2,100,000, paired with a 4-month consulting contract at $20,000 per month, plus the full 4-month severance package. Our bottom line was non-negotiable, accompanied by the explicit notice that our federal court injunction petition was finalized as and ready for immediate filing within the hour. Diana emphasized that we were fully prepared to litigate and enforce statutory penalties across all relevant jurisdictions. By 3:45 on Monday afternoon, the corporate board of directors capitulated completely, facing total operational collapse and intense pressure from Summit Capital Group investors, who threatened to cancel the acquisition if technical infrastructure was disrupted. Martin Lewis signed the master intellectual property buyout contract, the consulting agreement, and the severance authorization. On Wednesday afternoon at 2:15, we gathered at Fiona Jenkins' legal offices downtown for the formal execution of the settlement documents. A certified state notary public, Martha Vance, witnessed and stamped the 31-page legal contract. The contract specified detailed escrow instructions, wiring deadlines, full release of claims, and complete non-disparagement covenants to protect both parties. On the following Monday morning at 11:04, I sat in my pickup truck in the Horizon Logistics parking lot when my phone chimed with a bank transaction alert. I opened my mobile banking application and stared at the confirmed balance. $2,100,000 had officially cleared into my account, with the remaining consulting fees and severance payments scheduled in structured monthly installments. I took a deep breath, feeling an immense wave of relief and validation. Achieving complete financial independence through contractual foresight, meticulous documentation, and legal leverage was an extraordinary feeling. 16 years of dedicated work, military discipline, and careful record-keeping had culminated in absolute professional triumph. Over the following 4 months, I fulfilled every technical requirement of my consulting agreement with complete professional diligence. I structured a comprehensive training curriculum for Oliver Torres, creating detailed database documentation, writing step-by-step operational manuals, and producing recorded video walkthroughs explaining our complex predictive supply chain algorithms. Oliver proved to be an intelligent and respectful young man, and I treated him with utmost professional courtesy, ensuring he understood the mechanics of freight tracker. I wanted to make sure he had every tool necessary to succeed, even as executive management stumbled under their own corporate greed and short-sighted decision-making. I spent long hours guiding him through emergency failover protocols, cloud database optimization, and network maintenance routines. However, executive leadership failed to understand a fundamental principle of high-level supply chain management. Software architecture is only part of the operational equation. Personal trust, industry expertise, and long-standing client relationships constitute the rest. During my 4-month consulting tenures, senior vice presidents from 17 of Horizon Logistics' largest corporate client accounts contacted me privately. Having worked directly with me for over a decade, they expressed deep concern over the operational instability caused by Summit Capital Group's aggressive corporate restructuring and the sudden loss of experienced leadership. They knew that I was the person who kept their global supply chains running smoothly through weather disruptions, port strikes, and carrier shortages. They asked whether I would be available to provide independent logistics advisory services once my contractual non-compete obligations expired. I informed them that while I could not manage their accounts directly during my consulting term, I planned to open an independent supply chain consulting firm in the spring once my legal obligations were fulfilled. I reassured them that my commitment to operational excellence would remain unshakable in my new endeavor, and that my firm would provide the highest standard of personalized advisory support to safeguard their corporate supply networks against future vulnerabilities. We held preliminary discussions regarding operational strategies and prospective timelines for transitioning support services across key market sectors. In April, following the formal conclusion of my consulting contract with Horizon Logistics, I officially registered Gallagher Logistics Consulting in downtown Seattle. I leased a modern office space overlooking Elliott Bay and hired 3 highly experienced senior operations specialists from Horizon Logistics, who had resigned due to the toxic environment created by private equity management. My team brought decades of collective experience, and our clients knew they were getting unmatched dedication and proven operational leadership. We spent our first few weeks establishing robust cloud infrastructure and refining our client service frameworks to ensure seamless operations across all client operations. We made sure our network infrastructure met the highest industry standards of data security and redundancy. Within 6 months of launching, Gallagher Logistics Consulting secured independent advisory contracts with 22 major corporate clients, including 14 former key accounts of Horizon Logistics who chose to migrate their business to my new firm. By the end of our first full operational year, Gallagher Logistics Consulting was supervising 31 corporate client portfolios, generating $4,200,000 in annual advisory revenue. We established a reputation for flawless execution and deep technical expertise that competitors simply could not duplicate in the marketplace. Meanwhile, Horizon Logistics suffered catastrophic operational declines. Despite possessing full legal ownership of the Freight Tracker Code, management lacked the deep operational domain knowledge required to resolve complex international supply chain disruptions. System errors caused widespread shipment delays, client dissatisfaction escalated rapidly, and 4 major corporate accounts terminated their contracts within 9 months. The firm's once enviable reputation for flawless execution crumbled under inexperienced management and cost-cutting measures. Facing collapsing revenues and severe client defections, Chief Financial Officer Martin Lewis resigned under heavy pressure from the board of directors in August. 2 months later, Bradley Fletcher stepped down as Chief Executive Officer. He sent me a brief, personal email acknowledging that eliminating my position had been the single worst strategic mistake of his corporate career and wishing me continued success in my new business venture. By January of the following year, Summit Capital Group sold Horizon Logistics to a competitor, Pinnacle Corporate Group, at a distressed valuation 35% below their original purchase price. Many of the executives who pushed for my termination were relieved of their duties during the restructuring that followed. Today, Gallagher Logistics Consulting employs 22 full-time supply chain engineers and operations specialists. We manage 31 major corporate client accounts across defense contracting, commercial manufacturing, and international freight transport. Last year, our firm generated $11,200,000 in total annual revenue, proving that building a business on integrity and expertise yields lasting rewards. Whenever I mentor young professionals entering the industry, I share the exact legal and operational principles my father taught me years ago. Always document your independent work. Establish firm contractual boundaries around your intellectual property, and never assume corporate loyalty is reciprocal. Companies will eliminate an employee without hesitation, but they can never take away what you independently own and legally protect. Shedding fired at 54 years old initially appeared to be a devastating career setback, but through legal preparation, contractual foresight under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, and unyielding determination, it became the foundation of my greatest financial and professional victory.